everyone should be able to see the screen now.
Yep.
Lovely. Okay. So, welcome everyone to today's fourth event of Talk Money Week. So we have reached Thursday, and these popularity of these sessions are continuing to grow with new faces every day, and some people returning. So it can't have been that bad for the first 3 days. So that makes me happy at least. Today we are looking at feedback and Trustpilot, which is the method that the partnership are using for feedback obtaining from clients. So a little bit of Zoom etiquette as we've got new people here today. So if I can ask anyone who's not on mute already to be able to go onto mute. We will be having a Q&A session at the end, so if there are any questions that come up either during the presentation or at the end, then please feel free to enter them into the chat box. And we, as we have been most of the week at least, be recording today's presentation so that it can go up onto the new website next week for people to be able to watch back if they haven't been able to make the session today. Okay, so with no further ado, let's move on to the first slide. So, how do we get client feedback? So we have 3 means of evaluation with the client to get feedback about the service. So the first is carried out by the funder, the Money and Pension Service, and they have a contract with a third party. Used to be PwC. Prior to that was Optimizer, who then got bought out by PwC, and they are now in a commissioning process for a third party to carry out that evaluation. So that third party would contact clients who have received the service and agreed to be contacted for evaluation purposes. The client has to opt in, and then they would be chosen at random from all of those people across all of the partnerships, be that the face-to-face partnerships, be that the telephone and online providers as well. And they're chosen at random from a pool of clients who have either had their cases closed within the last 6 months or something that's come in since April of this year. Then they are also obtaining feedback from people within 6 weeks of their case being opened. The results are then due to be provided to participants on a quarterly basis, and we, due to the lag, then we haven't had any received this year as yet to be able to feed back to you. So there's usually quite a long delay between that evaluation being done by the funder and the results making its way back to us. For me, that probably undermines a little bit of the usefulness of that evaluation. So, leads me on to the second means, which is done by the partnership and was brought in June of this year with Debt-Free Southwest working with Trustpilot, who are one of the world's biggest review websites, and we'll come on to that in a little bit more detail in a moment. The final means of evaluation is carried out by the individual partners themselves, who contact their own clients, not just debt, but often across the spectrum of advice that they provide. And that's in line with their own policies and evaluation procedures. I would say that because each of these means of evaluation are so different, from questionnaires to open feedback to telephone queries and what is being asked of a client, then it does reduce the risk of evaluation burnout. So, why do we get client feedback? What's the point of it? Client could very well just have the advice, says thank you very much, tells the difference that you've made, walks out with good advice. Therefore, why are we then bugging them for feedback from 3 different sources? Well, we all know that the client is the centre of everything that the agencies within our partnership do. So feedback is the opportunity to reinforce this and to ensure that the clients are engaged in the service, and their feedback can then lead to improvements within the service. Promotion of this can then lead to further engagement from clients and lead to further improvements. With the reverse also being true. If you don't engage the client, then they won't feedback, because if they're not engaged and they're not getting the opportunity to feedback, or if they do, nothing's being done about it, then what's the point? I think that's as true for any one of us here today. If we're asked for feedback about anything, if we can't see the benefit of it, we don't tend to give it. Feedback also allows for us to really understand our clients. We often hear the client wants this or wants that, or the client can't do this or can't do that. But how do we know? Have we asked them? For example, during this pandemic, it was thought that nearly all of our clients need to access face-to-face advice. And this is true for the vast number of clients. We've seen that from the reduction in numbers accessing the service. And it's particularly true for the most vulnerable. However, we have had some feedback from several partners across Debt-Free Southwest about their surprise at what the clients could do when push has come to shove in this time of lockdown, particularly around WhatsApp engagement and telephone advice and the impact of that. And we know that because those participants have gone out and asked the clients around how do they feel about accessing through telephone advice and using other methods, and they've then been able to act upon that feedback. The most natural reason, I would say, for obtaining feedback is for service improvement. You can get feedback from clients about issues, barriers, or suggestions for improvement to the service, and then that service can be adapted to meet those suggestions. In my opinion, that's a truly client-led service, or at least a client-engaged service. And clients have a choice as to who they seek advice from, both within our partnership and from other national providers. We want to welcome them into our service, not trash them. So it's important to make sure that our clients are happy, so that our marketing doesn't fall on deaf ears. We shouldn't really rely upon just an annual survey to gauge overall happiness levels, especially when we can gauge this impact immediately. For example, pre-lockdown, every time you'd go to somewhere like Curry's, then as you were leaving, you had a couple of buttons to press, red and green, to show whether you were happy with everything about your visit or not. That's getting that instant feedback. The same is true in some public toilets, for example, where you get 1 to 5 to push the button to gauge the cleanliness of the toilet. Not quite sure always how clean those 1 to 5 buttons would be after leaving a toilet, particularly a male one, but they're there to gauge feedback all the same. And word of mouth recommendations grows our services. We know that from asking the question how our clients heard of us, and a huge number is through word of mouth. And that level of marketing costs us absolutely nothing. But giving a recommendation has a high bar. Our clients need to trust we won't damage their own reputation by giving a bad service after they recommend us. So collecting and, more importantly, acting upon feedback helps guarantee that everyone is happy, and clients will recommend us when they're given the chance to do so. We can also ask clients how things are and how they're going face to face, and they'll probably say fine, even if that's not what they're thinking. How many times has any of you here today been in a restaurant, had a meal with a partner or a friend, and you've talked about how disappointed with the food you are? The waiter or waitress then comes over to ask how the food is. What do you say? Probably, yeah, it's fine, thanks. And then as soon as they go back to talking about how disappointed with the food you are, trying to avoid that confrontation. And it's the same with our service. Small niggles can build up over time and make clients more receptive to possibly going elsewhere. The way to avoid that is to make the grass always greener on our side by making it clear that clients can always give candid feedback. Competitive tendering. It's probably the elephant that's going to be in the room for at least the next couple of years. And feedback has two huge benefits in relation to that. First, it's great to have a body of evidence from our current clients that we're great to deal with. From working with our clients, we know that feedback we've collected so far is overwhelmingly positive. So it doesn't hurt to add a sample of that to any competitive bid. But more subtly, when we collect feedback, we have all of our current clients in their own words saying what's important about our service to them. This will be very similar to what's important when a funder is looking at things that we're bidding to and expressed in a language that funder can be familiar with. I don't think that we should therefore underestimate how powerful this feedback can be. And finally, we've already touched upon why acting on feedback ensures that client by client, people are happy to come back when needed and refer their friends. But what's harder to quantify and is equally important is the cumulative effects of all this goodwill. When lots of clients are happy with the service provided by a partner and in turn by the partnership, then unexpected things can happen. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. When many people are aware of us and have a good feeling about our brand, then unexpected opportunities can start appearing more often. And morale within the team will improve and people can start to feel better about where they're working. And that's where Trustpilot comes in for our partnership. So taking this information from Trustpilot's website, essentially probably a bit of a sales tool, but their point of view is that what they do is they bring people who share their experiences together with companies and organizations in our case. And it's those companies or organizations who are there to create better experiences. And when you bring those together, then it's to make things better. And this ties in with our aims of getting the client feedback that we've just explored. Trustpilot are a review site with over 106 million reviews and over 450,000 websites that are reviewed. And these range from huge companies like Amazon to insurers like Churchill. There are also pages on there for shelter and citizens advice. So it covers a huge range of organisations. So what we have done. So we secured funding as part of our annual funding for MAPS this year, and we launched our Trustpilot page. So we claimed our profile for the partnership back in May and started to work on the page from early June. So we filled the page with the information about the partnership, with links to the then Money Advice West website and Facebook pages. We then created tailored invites for each of our partners within the partnership. This meant that in June, we sent out nearly 600 invitations to clients who had had their cases closed between the 1st of September last year and the 30th of June this year. All of these clients had provided email addresses and had provided consent to be approached for evaluation. And then at the middle of each of the following months, once we've received the data from our partners, then we have sent out invites to clients, again, who have consented to evaluation and have provided an email address to be contacted. To the end of September, we've had 24 reviews placed upon the Money Advice West Trustpilot page, and we've got an average score of 4.3 out of 5, which is excellent. Not my words, the words of Trustpilot. Giving a breakdown of those scores, then we've had 1 rating of 2 stars, which is poor, 3 ratings of 3 stars, which is average, 2 ratings of 4 stars, which is great, and 18 out of the 24 have rated as 5 stars, which is excellent. And combining those, that gives us our overall score of 4.3. This is a really, really good score. It compares favourably with our friends at Debt Free London, who have a score of 4.1. They have, however, had 279 reviews since they launched their profile back in June of 2019. Putting in a little bit of context, Shelter and Citizens Advice have been scored much more poorly, with scores 2.5 and 2.2 respectively. However, neither of these agencies have claimed their profile on Trustpilot, and so their scores and reviews have been generated by people going on to Trustpilot, entering the name of the organisation and writing their review. They've not been actively seeking reviews from clients, and therefore we can see that without seeking reviews and seeking evaluation from those who are positive about the service, then it's clearly a breeding ground for discontent. So the lesson there is to be part of it and actively seek feedback, which is likely then to generate positive feedback. 4.3 versus 2.2 is clearly an example of that. And therefore, you don't want your profile to be created and maintained by people who are unhappy. What we've also done is contact clients through Trustpilot to say thank you for their response, acknowledge they've been listened to with both good and poor scores, and then the feedback passed on to individual organisations to allow for them to be able to look into it and then develop their service or respond to that review accordingly. But don't just take my word for it. Here's the Trustpilot site itself. Okay. So, what we still have to do, we're not finished yet. After yesterday, we need to rebrand our Trustpilot page. A request was made of Trustpilot last week, and that's allowed for them to do the groundwork around the rebranding, but hasn't been able to be put in place until the website went live yesterday. Through our discussions with Trustpilot, it could take up to about another week for our profile to be changed over. It can then carry on the reviews of Money Advice West into the new Debt Free Southwest, so all of those reviews and traction isn't lost. I can then go on, update the logo, update the contents, update the information on the page as well. Promotional materials. In a world before COVID, then the plan was to obtain postcards to give to you so that you can have them in your interviews with the clients, pass it to the client to then let them know about Trustpilot, about the partnership, so that they can either then go on the website and enter themselves, or they won't think it's a spam email when they would receive it potentially when they're not expecting it. That's not been possible at the moment. However, once face-to-face services are able to resume in earnest, then we will be able to provide these to you, and in the meantime provide links to include in your service information or confirmation of advice letters to allow for a small section there to encourage people to have their say through Trustpilot. What Trustpilot allows us is the opportunity to celebrate the work of advisors. And from back what now feels like the depths of time ago, then I can remember being in offices with debt advisors, welfare benefits advisors, and it was those benefits advisors who tended to be absolutely inundated with thank you cards, flowers, chocolates, maybe a nice bottle or two every now and again. However, this was very, very rare for debt advisors, who may get the odd thank you every now and again. Whilst we know that advisors aren't particularly in it for the presents, then at least acknowledgement and congratulations of a good job well done is still hugely important. And as such, we're going to use this good feedback from Trustpilot, put it on Debt-Free Southwest branded postcards, and give that to advisors so that they can do with it what they wish. If they want to just put it in a drawer and forget about it, fine. If they want to put it all over their desks and their walls, and just, if they're having a really rubbish day, turn to it, look up, have that reminder of a job well done and appreciated by the client, then I think that little thing that we can do to get this feedback, pass it on, I think is going to make a real difference. What we're also doing at the moment is manually putting client information in from the monthly reports and sending those reports out to Trustpilot to obtain the reviews. There is an automated invitation to allow for us not to be able to do that. However, it does require putting some work in with yourselves who are either using Advice Pro or with Casebook around auto generation of an email through a BCC link to Trustpilot. That is something that we will be doing over the coming weeks in the run up to Christmas to allow for that auto generation and reduction of the manual input that's required at our end at the moment. As the Trustpilot site is linked to the partnership, then we are unable to have a site per agency, essentially due to cost. If we were to have a site per agency, then it would be 9 times the price. It would be one price per agency. So that's why we've chosen to have one Trustpilot profile for the partnership. But what is available within that profile is locations, so that you can have a location linked to each of the agencies, and then we're able to split the reviews from that page across a location, so we can then more easily analyse and get the feedback to those agencies individually, whilst also having the benefit of the overall feedback for the partnership. And also, we value the feedback from our clients, so we will ensure that there are regular reports, quarterly most likely, about evaluations and scores going to managers within the project board meeting, but also ensuring that these are distributed to everybody within the partnership. Engagement really is important for everybody involved. So looking a little bit at the numbers now. So the main thing that we still need to do is increase the number of people giving reviews into Debt Free Southwest. We reported to MAPS that 18% of clients whose cases were closed last quarter, July to September, consented to evaluation. This is down from 27% during the first quarter. This figure is even smaller for those who could be contacted for Trustpilot reviews, as an email address is needed. So in September alone, 31 clients provided consent for evaluation across the partnership and provided an email address. This is just 7% of the 403 clients who are eligible for evaluation. And what I mean by eligible for evaluation is those whose files were either closed in September or opened in September. Also in September, 3 agencies didn't provide a single client who met the criteria of evaluation through Trustpilot by having consent and an email address for evaluation. Within the 31 clients, and there was a range. So what we need to do to make this work is increase the sample size significantly. So what I'm asking from you to be able to do that are a few things on the front line. Firstly, a very brief explanation of who Debt Free Southwest are, so that it doesn't come out of the blue as to an email that may well come down the line from Debt Free Southwest. So it could be just along the lines of explain that we're one of the partnership, and you may get an email from Debt Free Southwest asking for evaluation on Trustpilot. So it's just giving that a little bit of gravitas as to the name, so that it doesn't, as I say, look like a spam email that's trying to fish for information. You can explain what Trustpilot is. It's an evaluation website that allows the client to let them give their feedback and let us know what they thought about the service. This isn't designed to replace the evaluation form that's going to track well-being and the impact of advice, but what it can do is give us some useful feedback about what people thought about the service and the ways that they can give advice. They don't have to wait for the email. They can go onto the Trustpilot site, and on that homepage they can search for an organisation. They type in Debt Free Southwest, they go to the page, and they can fill out their review there and then. Or, as I say, they can wait for the email to come, click on the link, and it takes them through to the website to be able to leave that review. One of the big things that we can do is get an email address and record it on Advice Pro or Casebook, or if you're CIT-A and reporting it, then on your reporting sheets, so that we then have a larger amount of clients who we can contact for evaluation. And they're only contacted for once. There's not a weekly update to remind them. It's not haranguing clients. It's completely up to them if they want to leave feedback. But what we need to do by getting the email address, explaining the advantages of evaluation, and getting consent for evaluation, is it opens more of the door to allow for the client to have that opportunity to give feedback if they want to do so. And we can do that by explaining that very thing. We don't need to give them a half-hour presentation all about the advantages of evaluation like I've tried to today, but it's just saying we've got something that allows for you to go away in your own time and just let us know what you think. If you think we've done a good job, great. If you think we could do something better, let us know, and we can then try and do something better. It allows us to then shape our services by listening to what the clients want. And if we've got consent, please just remember to tick the box. It's a little thing. It might be done by yourselves, it might be done by admin, but it's just making sure that if we do get consent, it is recorded correctly. And all of this should then increase the number of clients providing feedback. I think in a realistic world, we can certainly get between 30 and 50% of clients eligible for feedback. I don't ever envisage we'll probably even get 10% a month. But if we can get 10% a month giving any sort of feedback, look at that, that could be 40 a month. That's a good sample size each and every month to then allow for us to give that feedback to advisors, look at how we're delivering services, and make the change that clients are suggesting if we're seeing a trend of things that we can do better. It allows us to act on the negative, but it also allows for us to act on any positive feedback, any constructive feedback from clients. And as I say, it allows us to pass that good feedback on to advisors. We're using Trustpilot to try to improve the service and improve morale of staff. This is one of the things that we can try to do to improve morale. That's actually within our control. There may be other things that's not within our control that reduces morale, but if we've got this one thing within our control to do so, then let's take advantage of that. Again, thank you very much for your time this morning. We've got just less than 5 minutes left before Zoom kicks us all out. So if you want to give me any feedback on any of the presentations from this week, then we will be sending out an evaluation form next week for all those able to attend and also those able not. So if anybody's got any questions, I will stop sharing my screen and we can have a look at the chat box.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I've unmuted. Is that okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Ed.
So I said here, yeah, it's just too long to sort of type this. I just, from experience, and I know funders love questionnaires, and I can see why they would, but I've noticed an experience, and I've done it before, the NHS and also Yarlington do it as well. It's quite a lot of extra work for us to do. So any way we can make this sort of easier would be great. I just wonder that, sort of bear that in mind. I know it's, it's a lot of sort of chasing around after clients as well and trying to get forms back. Whether it's possible just to do the questionnaire as the Trustpilot or as a link or something like that, or an online form or something like that. I don't know. It's just something to bear in mind because, we've sort of got a million and one things to do. This is just another thing to do. So, yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so questionnaire wise is something slightly different. So MAPS are do their own questionnaire once we've given the data to them to allow for them to take that sample. What we're doing with this is, as I say, if it's face-to-face, at the end of the interview, just say, we're part of Debt Free Southwest, here's the card, please go and review us. Ideally in face-to-face, that's the way it's done. If it's not, then just something very quickly at the end of the telephone call, and then it's followed up with the link by email or within the confirmation of advice letter should be able to minimise the amount of work that you've got to do on that, Ed.
But the questionnaire itself is going to be sent out, yeah? Is that right, at the end?
So if you've got internal questionnaires, then that would fall separately to this, and I could always have a conversation with Kim about how best to do that.
Okay.
Okay. So very quick, in the chat box, we've got a positive comment from Anthony around evaluation. Kim's disappearing, and then Jordan has said, what determines whether a client is eligible for feedback? So very quickly, eligible for feedback is if they're given their email address and given their consent for evaluation. So long as they've accessed the service and given their consent and given us a way to contact them by email, then that's how they're eligible for feedback. Hopefully that answers that question. I can see a little bit of a nod, so hopefully that has. Has anybody got any other questions for the last 80 seconds or so? No, lovely. Okay, so I'll just wrap up by saying thank you everybody for attending today. Hopefully you found it useful. As I said, today has been recorded and will be put on the resources hub on the new website next week to allow for you to look back over the presentation, look through the slides and share with anybody who's not been able to attend today. And just leaves me to say tomorrow we have continuous improvement. So we are looking at Flex Omnichannel, we are looking at Embark with Pay Plan, and we are looking, hopefully touching on a little around case recording templates, all designed to improve the service and hopefully improve efficiency in case recording to reduce wasted time there. So hopefully see you all 9:15 tomorrow morning. Thank you everyone for coming. Goodbye.
Thanks, Drew.